Hey everybody, what's happening? Brent Axe here from syracuse.com. We are live on the Syracuse Orange basketball Facebook page, and we're coming off the heels of another Syracuse basketball loss, this time to the Oregon Ducks, an 80-65 final at Madison Square Garden. So the Syracuse men's basketball stay in New York, a sour apple in the Big Apple as they lose two games at Madison Square Garden as part of the 2K Classic. It all started off with a women's basketball victory on Wednesday against Texas A&M, but the men's team loses two games, one to UConn last night, another to Oregon tonight. A lot of the same problems that Syracuse had a night ago came back to haunt them again in this game, particularly some bad shooting for the Orange, so we'll certainly go over that. Look ahead for Syracuse, and it all culminates with the football game tomorrow. Maybe a little more pressure on the football team to come through with a win after a pretty bad stay at Madison Square Garden for the Orange basketball team. So it's great to have you here. Hop in those comments. Do your thing. I'll start responding to you guys in the comments here shortly. Please like and share this post to let everybody know we're here. Kind of odd to be here when we are, to watch a game in the middle of the afternoon on a Friday. It kind of felt like a conference tournament for Syracuse, particularly at Madison Square Garden. We used to play all those early games, so kind of a different time to be here, but I'll take the early night on a Friday, as I'm sure many of you will, to really hone in and get ready for Syracuse and Notre Dame tomorrow. Programming note, we will be live on the Syracuse Orange football Facebook page after that Syracuse-Notre Dame game. Tomorrow kickoff at 2:30, so look forward to talking with you then, and it's all presented by our friends at Krause Health. So big story again for Syracuse is they cannot shoot the basketball. Tonight, the Orange go 18 of 52, 34% from the field, 5 of 24 from three-point range. That's 20%. O'Shea Brissett, who last night went 5 of 15, 3 of 15, goes 2 of 12 in this game tonight, 1 of 8 from three-point range. O'Shea is really struggling the last two games. He looked pretty good the first two games of the season, really struggling in these last two games, airballing, taking bad shots, refusing to take the ball inside. There was one play in particular in this game when O'Shea Brissett had a wide-open three-pointer and for some reason, chose to kind of drive in and take a contested three-point shot. It was kind of a microcosm of his bad game and how much he struggled at Madison Square Garden. And there was a lot of NBA scouts at MSG as well. Perhaps that got in his head and certainly didn't help his cause to leave Syracuse after the season. It's a long year, and a lot of evaluation will take place, but a lot of negative marks will come from that. Elijah Hughes had 14 points in this game. O'Shea did manage 11 points as he got to the free throw line and went 6 of 8 there. Tyus Battle led Syracuse with 17 points, but was 4 of 10 from the field. He was 9 of 10 from the free throw line, so he was starting to charge the hoop and get some shots there. But Tyus was 0 of 3 from three-point range. Merrick Dolezaj really struggled in this game. Boy, Kenny Wooten from Oregon just absolutely posterized that kid. I felt bad for Merrick on that play. 4 points for him. Barama Sidibe and Pascal Chukwu facing Bull. Yes, the son of Manute Bull, the former NBA star. Well, they didn't do so well in this case because Bull ends up with 26 points, 9 rebounds on the night. He even shot a three-pointer at one point in this game, as Syracuse turns the ball over 16 times. They only had 11 turnovers last night. Oregon turned the ball over a bunch as well. They actually turned the ball over more, 17 times. Syracuse, though, with how inept they've been on offense, just could not take advantage. Oregon did out-rebound Syracuse in this game. 35-28 was the final mark there. But the story is certainly Syracuse is really struggling on the offensive end. And a lot of people made this comment. I see some of you making the comments here on Facebook Live. And don't forget, we do archive this on YouTube. If you're watching later on YouTube, the comments that people are leaving, one of the words is embarrassing. And listen, I can't disagree with that. Sometimes you're emotional. You're on, if it's a Facebook chat, if it's social media, whatever the case may be. We do a live chat on syracuse.com during the game. And you kind of, you react emotionally. And I get that fans say things. In this case, I can't really disagree with you. That was an embarrassing performance from the Orange. It was eerie how quiet Madison Square Garden was. There was only probably 3,000 people in the building. But the crowd never had an opportunity to get into this. Syracuse looks flat. They look lost. the effort, the grit is just not there from this team. And I've seen a couple of you make this comment. It's certainly a comment that people are making elsewhere, and that is, well, they need Frank Howard back. You're not wrong to say that. But the way this team has started so far this season, Frank Howard is not going to be some kind of magic elixir for this team. Frank Howard is not going to make up for how inept the offense has been. They're getting open shots. They're just not falling. And while they need their senior leader and they do need a facilitator on offense, they need a quarterback out there. Maybe Jim Boeheim should have borrowed Tommy DeVito from Dino Babers. They're all in New York this weekend, right? As much as Frank Howard's needed, he's not going to fix everything that ails this basketball team right now. They've got time to work it out, but there's a little bit more of a crunch than usual to kind of figure out what's wrong and fix it. I looked it up before we came on tonight. Syracuse has not started a season with a record of 2-2 since the 1987-88 season. That was the season following the Final Four run in 87. They opened up with North Carolina in the Hall of Fame Classic, lost. It was a terrific basketball game, 96-93 in overtime, and then beat a couple, I think it was like Alaska Anchorage and a couple teams like that, then lost early. Now that team, 87-88, they still finished 26-5. The last team that kind of had a similar record than this, other than that 2-2 team exactly, was in 2005-06. Syracuse started 3-2. That was the team that finished on that miracle run by Jerry McNamara at Madison Square Garden, as we were talking about that game in MSG tonight, in the Big East tournament, and they lost eventually to Texas A&M in the NCAA tournament. So that's a little perspective on just how much we expect Syracuse to start 4, 5, 6, 7-0 sometimes, or maybe just have one loss early in the season, rattle off all those wins, and really have a good record before non-conference play. So Syracuse is in a hole they have not been in since 1987-88. And you got to start to ask yourself, well, how can they fix this? Some of these fixes are easy. Some of these fixes are, you've got to take better shots. Why this team continues to just take three-pointer after three-pointer when they're not falling that's on everybody, because I'm sure that Boeheim is telling them in the huddle to stop taking these shots, or maybe he's not, because if they're open shots, as the expression goes, shoot or shoot, and once one goes, another comes, and you get on a roll. But this is 2 nights in a row that Syracuse in this building, and I think that, and I brought this up on yesterday's Facebook Live after the UConn game, and I'll bring it up again. I think that NBA line throws these guys off. They want to show that they can hit from NBA range, and it's right there. The college line is there. Take advantage of it and use it. But the fact that O'Shea Brissett just kept shooting threes, if it's not there the first time around, drive to the hoop. Tyus Battle didn't start driving to the hoop until it was too late. We mentioned Jalen Carey's great game last night. He was pretty good again tonight, 14 points on the night. He was 4 of 9 shooting, got to the free throw line, hit 5 out of 6 there. Just 1 assist on the night, though. Now, Jalen Carey's not a true point guard. He's a combo guard. So with Frank out, it is a combo of Jalen Carey running the point, of Tyus Battle running the point when he has to. Buddy Boeheim continues to struggle. We didn't mention him yet. He had just 3 points on the night. They did spell his jersey correctly tonight, so they had that going for him, which is nice. Boeheim was 1 of 5, 1 of 4 from three-point range. Now it's early, he's adjusting to the college game, but the anticipated role that Buddy was going to play on this team was to be a consistent three-point shooter. And so far early on in the season, we have not seen that. So Syracuse surely is going to fall out of the top 25 after 2 losses, one to a fellow ranked team in Oregon, and kind of has to build its way back up. They get Colgate Wednesday night. Colgate's better this year. I'll say that. I don't think they can beat Syracuse, but they're better this year, and we'll see what kind of team shows up then. Jim Boeheim noting at his press conference that there's a chance that Frank Howard could play in that game, but he kind of put it on him, saying how he feels will determine whether he plays in that game. I think you're going to see Frank Howard play in that game. I think he wants to get back out there and help his team. Oh, wow. Howard the Duck reference. I love it. Jake dropping the Howard the Duck reference, circa 1986. You got to love that. Make all the duck jokes, right? Just don't use that word that rhymes with duck, right? Let's see. Richard's saying they don't even look as good as last year's team. They need more than Frank. Yeah, last year's team we kind of embraced because they kept losing bodies, but they were so good defensively. They played their butts off. the grit, the hustle, how they kind of, bonded together, that their backs got put up against the wall and they responded to that. And I think that's a big comment that people were making during the game and you're making now. And that is, this team just looks flat. They don't look like they've got chemistry. They don't look like there's a lot of times, a lot of little things pile up, no high fives after plays, not helping guys up that fall on the floor. A lot of the little things that make a team are just not evident yet. And I want to stress the word yet. It is 3 games into this, or 4 games into the season, pardon me. You don't just snap a finger and these things happen, particularly without your point guard. But, at some point, those things have to start to happen. What I was encouraged by early, but this completely broke down, was in the first, I'd say, 10 minutes of the game, Syracuse was moving the ball a lot better in this game than they did against UConn last night. It led to some opportunities, but those shots weren't falling. They were turning the ball over, as we noted. They had 5 more turnovers than last night. So when the shots weren't falling, they just fell back into old habits, and that ball movement stopped, and it was just a lot of iso ball. And Jim Boeheim coaches a team that stresses iso ball, and they pick and roll at the top and letting players create, letting players have freedom, letting players take those shots. Well, sometimes you got to step in and put the clamps on that when it wasn't working. And, it just seemed like no matter what he tried, Syracuse pressed. That didn't work. They had no answer for Bull, as we mentioned. I mean, Pascal Chukwu and Barama Sidibe, other than a number of plays you can count on one hand, did nothing. Not only in this game tonight, but Cobb last night for UConn ate Pascal's lunch. So he's struggling early on to be more physical, to assert himself in there. He's healthy. Had a great game against Morehead State, which I guess you would expect against a team that you tower over here. So Syracuse has to beef up that inside play. Even Merrick Dolezaj struggled on the defensive end tonight. And there's a guy who's usually a spark. He's the glue guy, the hustle guy. But the thing you're going to remember Merrick from this game is when Kenny Wooten dunked on him. And that's probably the number 1 play on the SportsCenter Top 10 tonight. Steven's saying they better not take any threes against Colgate. Yeah, just work on your inside game and pound the glass and pound it inside. Why even do that? It's just, the word is lazy. They just looked lazy out there tonight. I'm just going to take these threes. Well, sometimes you don't take a shot if it's there, particularly if you're not feeling it. You got to get the ball inside and work your way out and score. And Oregon was handing them opportunities and handing them possessions with the turnovers, and they just kept jacking up threes, not using the shot clock, not passing the ball. It was disorganized. And, people brought up the word embarrassing, and I really can't disagree with a lot of what you're saying there. Javen saying Howard can't do much when he gets back. I think it's the recruiting and Boeheim. Look at the intensity UConn had from Hurley and his players. We look rattled at times and not aggressive enough. Carey might be the worst fast break guard I've seen. What do I think? I think Jalen Carey's a freshman and has played 4 games. I think he's got speed. I think he can get into the hole. I want to see, jury's still out on what kind of shooter he is, but I'm not making any sort of firm judgments on Jalen Carey after 4 games. If anything, he was one of the best players on the floor the last 2 nights. I really like the way Elijah Hughes is playing. I know he's missing some shots, but he's playing with some grit and some heart. And he's confident. When he gets the ball, he wants to shoot. He wants the ball in his hands. I think he's kind of feeling that out. Maybe he doesn't want to overstep his bounds. But you don't have Frank Howard out there. Tyus Battle leads a certain way. I like that Elijah Hughes kind of asserted himself. 14 points in this game, 4 of 10 shooting. He's still getting used to things, getting in the flow, but I like what I've seen from him. I think Jalen Carey and Elijah Hughes were the 2 best players on the floor for Syracuse these past 2 games. So, Javen, I wouldn't bail on Jalen Carey yet. That kid's talented, and I think he just needs time and reps. I think we expect these recruits to just come in and be stars right away. You can't always have, Zion Williamson at Duke or some of these freshmen that come right in and make an impact. You got to let freshmen develop, and I think that Jalen is going to be a great player. I've seen a few of you say play man-to-man defense. If you're lethargic in the zone, why would you switch to man-to-man? Man-to-man is about hustle. Man-to-man is about grit. Man-to-man is about getting to your guy. I mean, that old thing isn't going to work. And when they were in the press, they got beat most of the time. They technically were in the man-to-man, right, when they pressed in a certain way, and for the most part, it didn't work. Steven's saying Bull's a 4-year starter than the NBA. He'd be a fool to go early. I don't know why he'd be a fool to go early. Somebody would draft him, and somebody would draft him in the first round at this point. You may be right about what kind of player he'd develop into if he went early, but he wouldn't be a fool to go early. Someone's going to pick that kid in the first round. He's a terrific talent. That reminds me of Manute Bull, by the way. I was talking about this with my friend Josh on K-Rock this morning. I go on K-Rock on Friday mornings on the show. And there's an old urban legend about nobody really knows how old Manute Bull was. He came into the United States and played college ball, played in the NBA, and as the legend goes, Manute Bull is no longer with us, so we have real no way to determine this unless they should do like a 30 for 30 on this and investigate it. But nobody really knew how old he was, which was a fascinating story. We do know how old Bull is. So first-round pick this year, next year, whatever year, that kid's going to play in the NBA. He's got some great moves, smooth around the basket. And, not that Pascal and Barama really challenged him. I want to see what happens when he starts to get a little more fit, teams that play physical against him and how he responds there. But that kid's a heck of a player, and I'm going to enjoy watching him. He's worth staying up late just to watch those West Coast games to see what he's doing. Jamie's saying as long as Boeheim is coaching, you're never going to see man-to-man. They don't even practice it. That's incorrect, Jamie. They do practice it, but you're right to say that you're just not going to see it, and nor should you see it. Why everybody thinks that the man-to-man is this, I'll use the term again, this magic elixir that will fix Syracuse's problems. Syracuse's problem right now is offensively. They can't shoot the ball. I think the defense will come. It's not as intense, and Jim Boeheim said this himself at the press conference after the game. It's not what it was last year, but we're only 4 games into the season. The defense will come. Half of the zone is not only knowing where you need to be, and there's a few players, Elijah Hughes, Jalen Carey, even Buddy Boeheim, that are adjusting to being in that zone. And when Frank comes back and you've got the 5 starters back and the players that are kind of in the flow better in the zone, but the zone, 60% of it's just effort and moving and being active and getting those arms up and making it hard on the other team. Todd saying we're like the Cleveland Browns going nowhere. Oh, boy. Come on, guys. This was a bad stop at Madison Square Garden. Okay? I will not dispute anybody that uses the word embarrassing, but now we're using Cleveland Browns references. What's a bigger bust, the Cleveland Browns or Howard the Duck? Somebody brought up Howard the Duck earlier. I love that. So take a deep breath. It's not that bad yet, but you have a right to look at this and say, things aren't the way they should be here. Who would have thought that here in November, the most anticipated thing would be a football game? It's a football school, right, guys? Come on, I had to make that joke. But what if the football team goes out and loses to Notre Dame, which is entirely possible? Notre Dame's really good. Ian Book is back at quarterback, Dexter Williams at running back. They've got a shutdown corner, great defensive end, one of the best pass rushers in college football. I want to see what the field conditions are tomorrow. The football team's certainly running the ball a lot better. I think they've got every shot to make this a game, but I think what's, Syracuse needs is a defensive touchdown, something on special teams, because, the margin for error is so much slimmer. Eric Dungy's not going to get away with things against Notre Dame that he can against Louisville, who's a tire fire, against Wake Forest, who had one of the worst defenses in college football. NC State, Dungy lit it up. He was motivated because Tommy DeVito was on his heels. They need that Dungy to deliver those accurate throws. But it's a really good Notre Dame team. So I love the confidence that people have in the football team, but they're not going to go down there and roll Notre Dame. Not to mention, it's their home game. So there's a lot of things the football team has to overcome. I think they've got a great shot to win it, but let's not just assume they're going to take down the Fighting Irish. Amber saying, though, Stephen A. Smith thinks so. Yeah, I saw that clip. The fact that Stephen A., pardon me, is like the spirit animal of this football team is so amusing to me. I love it, though. The guy, he's very passionate, and he spoke to the team before the season. He gave a great speech. He was really breaking them on the Golics. Of course, on Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio. I talked to Mike Golic Jr. on my radio show this week, and, they're Notre Dame guys, and they're all in. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. The football team maybe a little bit more pressure to, kind of salvage this weekend. The women's basketball team got a great win, but the men's team obviously did not have a great stay at Madison Square Garden here. So can they find a way to get the shots going, first of all? Colgate is a good way to fix that. And somebody brought it up earlier. Don't keep jacking threes against Colgate unless you're making them, of course, and you kind of roll with the hot hand. But they've got to work on ball movement. They got to work on higher percentage shots. They got to stop turning the ball over so much. They got to find somebody to lead this team with Frank Howard out. Even if Frank plays on Wednesday, he's nowhere near 100%. And I don't think Frank Howard parachutes in and saves this team. This team has talent. This team has depth. This team can shoot the ball. Boeheim mentioned it at practice. He's right to say it. O'Shea has been hitting shots at practice. But, anybody want to drop the Allen Iverson line here? We're talking about practice here. So there's a lot this team does have to work on. Not a good run at Madison Square Garden against two good teams. This was going to be this was going to be truth serum. This was going to be where Syracuse really is at this point and what they need to work on. The good news is you've got some ground to make things up here. The bad news is, as we've come to see with last year's team as a prime example, all 4 months of the season count. You can't start piling up non-conference losses because of the quad system, how the RPI factors in, strength of schedule. The selection committee looks at the entire season, and you just lost to a ranked team, so it helps you in some ways because of the competition you're playing, but you can't pile up those non-conference losses. It leaves you more pressure to win in league play in the ACC. So the Orange go down tonight, 80-65 is your final. We got football tomorrow. We'll be back at it on the Syracuse Orange Facebook page on the football side right after that game tomorrow following Dino Baber's press conference at Yankee Stadium. So I hope you can join us for that. Please read my recap on syracuse.com in the morning. All the great coverage coming from Madison Square Garden as well, from Mike Waters and Donna Ditota and Chris Carlson, Dennis Nett, and Scott Schild taking the photos. We'll have Jim Boeheim's press conference put up and a whole bunch of coverage from tonight. My recap will be up tomorrow morning. And then let's get ready for some football. The Orange and Notre Dame, 2:30 kick at Yankee Stadium. Cannot wait to watch that game and cannot wait to talk about it with you afterwards. Thanks for hanging out tonight. Enjoy the rest of your Friday night. Okay? I think I got to go shovel again. It's been snowing all day in Syracuse. So you guys enjoy the rest of your Friday night. We'll meet right back here on Facebook Live after Syracuse and Notre Dame. Thanks to Krause Health for presenting it all. And thanks to you for hanging out with us here on Facebook Live.